Hello, you're listening to Everyday Superpower, a place where you can learn how to read the minds of others purely through observing their behaviours and gestures in real day-to-day life. Alright, if you like what you hear, click like, click subscribe, and potentially leave a comment if it triggers any sort of commentation you would like to leave. And without further ado, we're going to listen to the lesson. So, what we're going to talk about today is a general rule, right? The negative is truthful. Okay, so what does that mean? That means in body language and reading people's nonverbal communications in your day-to-day life, if you identify any negative behaviors or negative body language, take it as more truthful than the positive. All right, it's tough, a tough one to absorb, to be honest, because I'll get into that later. But people will put on a mask as they go through life. Okay, we're taught this in a very early age to control our facial expressions, to put on a face and stuff, whether it be around certain friends of the family or actual family, or put a smile on your face for whatever purpose. And even as an adult, you learn to interact and communicate through particular societal norms, which would be, let's say, for example, you work in an office or you're simply buying something from a shop. You have to some degree, put a face on regardless of how you feel, just to ensure that the communication goes smoothly and you don't go in there and put anybody off and, look like somebody who you're told you're not supposed to look like. So, saying that, as we'll just recap that, given the choice between positive and negative nonverbal messages, we as the reader should always rely on reading the negative nonverbal cues first and emphasizing on them, okay? And that's true wherever it may be found. So, of course, I think it's more evident, yet also more easily hidden on the face. But if we have a look at the arms, the hands, the legs, the feet, and so on and so forth, the blading of the torso, where they're facing and so forth, we should pay attention to that negative side first. And this is where it becomes quite problematic as us. As when they say ignorance is bliss in this particular field, it kind of is, purely as you'll start to see negative cues come from those you love and those whom you may be trying to receive gratification from. So let's say you're an entertainer and you perform and then somebody says that was brilliant, yet their non-verbal behavior is stating that they didn't like it, and in fact it was not very pleasing at all. It can be quite harmful and hurtful, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt and understand, at least you're not living in a dreamland to some degree and you're able to identify a person's true thoughts. Okay, so given that society does deem it inappropriate that we do express ourselves in such a manner in the open world, within reason, it is a good insight to an individual's true thoughts, whether that be on a consistent basis or in a real-time engagement. My apologies. I'm coming down with a cold, I think. So it requires individuals. Society requires individuals to act positively, even though things may not be going well. I'll tell a little story from my regards. So I go into a particular environment to buy a product. As I walk up, the individual who's supposed to be helping me has a smile in the face, yet when they initially see me and that I'm going to come and inquire, I see the eyes squint, blocking me out. It's an eye-blocking behaviour, and fuss, as we're talking about, it's a negative behaviour, right? So I have to believe that as truth. I can't just look at the smile and say this person likes me, because they're not going to like me and intentionally put on a negative display, are they? Because that would be detrimental. So what they did was smile at me, whilst, an ever so tiny micro expression, yet ever so bold, because we look each other eye to eye, explained the person's true thoughts about either me as a person or me being a potential hassle to them who might be doing other things, and so on and so forth. It's up to you to assess what the issue is, but regardless, it was enough for me to consider this person doesn't necessarily like me at this time. let's take it into the verbal department. I know this is mostly about non-verbal communication, but just to sort of reinforce how we have to pay attention to the negative. This links into narcissism and individuals whom try to find any means of staying atop and controlling you through some manner. All right, so I might do an offshoot series at some point regarding, uncovering the masks of those around you, because as you start to understand this information, you start to look at the people around you as who they truly are. And there's a lot of people who surround us who may not necessarily have our best intentions in mind. So I knew an individual, who was ever so persistent. Like, this person was ingrained within a particular social group I was in, and everybody loved him. And I didn't think too bad about him, you know what I mean, for the first couple of years, all right, until I started to mature as an individual and stem off into different directions and whatnot. Coming back, the person would just demean me in the most indirect means, okay? So they'd have a smile on their face, they'd be playful with everyone, they'd be happy, joyful, upbeat with everyone, which is, also a bit of a red flag in itself, because when somebody's so overt and, highly concentrated in a particular area, it should for the most part actually show the opposite. So this person was so overly enthusiastic and energized all the time that it actually covered up a bit of a dark, sinister side, which I started to understand when I started to feel this pattern of put down in the most indirect means by this individual. Now, this will come down to an inferiority complex and a poor sense of self, essentially, okay? So if you've got anybody around you who feels like they need to put everybody down on a consistent basis, whether overt or, covert, it's a sign of a weak sense of self, and the person doesn't feel too comfortable within themselves, all right? That's why they feel the need they have to do so. So this individual was the biggest best friend to everybody, yet under a blanket of that came a more sinister, dark, real aspect of their personality, okay, which they tried to conceal, such as the individual whom is putting a smile on yet is squinting at you to say, I don't want you here. Okay? So negative body language happens precisely because we don't want it to happen. We don't want people to know we're upset or scared or bored or in disagreement. Okay? The negative feelings can be, deemed inappropriate, as we've spoken, a societal view, and so we do mask them to keep them to ourselves, which is also quite problematic, purely as you repress, or the individual whom is performing this is repressing it through some means. It always comes out, okay, and that's the most important thing. It always comes out through the most indirect means. So let's say we can't go around and be violent with each other like our ancestors used to do, but we still do act violently towards others through other indirect means. It needs to find a way to come out. So whether that's through passive aggression or through financial, domination and stuff like that, we find means of doing so. All right. So just to finish off, the final example would be you're sitting at a date with someone or some sort of appointment, as to which you say, are you enjoying yourself? The person says, yeah, of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Yet their feet are pointing towards the door, towards the exit, because they want to leave the board, all right? So verbally, it would be rude to be so upfront and honest. It'd be incredibly blunt to do so, which is understandable as to why they didn't say that. They don't want to go around hurting people's feelings, right? Yet their body is showing the negative. Their feet are facing towards the door. So at that point, it might be in your best interest to sort of, go in there a little more. So just like, do you have anywhere to be? Or purely just start to, tie things up a little. As it'll do you a favour in the long run as well, because it'll show that you aren't some individual just hangs on for too long, and they will see you as someone who understands them, and you sort of give something other people don't when you can read them through that means. So without further ado, I'm going to finish. To re-clarify, the negative is the most truthful aspect of body language. It will come with problems such as seeing more negative energy in this world, but you'll also, on the contrary, see more realistic, honest language. All right. So that's about it. I'm going to sign out because I'm going to sneeze my head off. I'm so bunged up right now. Click like, click subscribe. Leave a comment if you're interested in doing so. See you next time. Goodbye.